We're here. Very special guest, Naw Talk Yo Sh with CEO Des. This is Ep.9. Very special guest. I'm super excited for you guys to hear what he has to say. We're going to dive right in. So, Dr. Elad Granot.
Yeah.
A visionary leader, over 25 years in academia and business. Dr. Granot is known for shaking things up in higher ed, driving growth and pushing for innovation. From advising tech startups to running a high-tech VC fund, he's made a significant impact in the education sector and beyond. Famed for his unique blend of academic rigor and real-world relevance, he's on a mission to create a superior student experience and open up more opportunities for the next generation. He's not just a leader, but a scholar, speaker, and frequent media commentator. Get ready to be inspired as we delve into his journey and insights. Let's welcome Dr. Granot.
Thank you.
Yes,
Glad to be here. You set it up so high, I have no idea how I'm going to live up to it.
So I guess real quick, you can kind of give an intro from your perspective, what you're into right now, and then we'll kind of get into the questions that I have.
Sure. In your intro, which is accurate, you mentioned that I've been in higher ed and in business for a long time, and I've been in business for a lot longer than higher ed. And one of the reasons I decided to transition into higher ed was I saw a gap between what we in business need and what business schools, higher education, vocational schools, community colleges, what they produce. And there's a gap, and you see it more and more. And if I had to sort of say it in one word, it would be technology. Technology is the future. Technology is opportunity. Technology is innovation. Technology is success. And so we cannot have a gap. We should not have a gap between where we are as an education system. And when I say education, I'm talking all the way from pre-K up to PhD.
Right.
And we shouldn't have a gap in producing graduates that are technologically proficient. And so I'll say all that with a caveat of we have a serious problem in higher education of access. And so if there's a lot of talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and I'm a big supporter of that, but you can't have all that without access. If no one's coming in through the doors, or not enough people coming in through the doors, through and from marginalized populations, traditionally marginalized populations, then you're creating even more disparity. And who's going to take care of that if not the educational system? It's on us. So I'm a first generation immigrant. To me, education is the most important thing, and I truly believe it is the key to success. You got your education, I got my education. We're going to where we need to be going, and we need to be helping others do that. And I think we need to do that primarily through technological proficiency. If you don't have technological proficiency, you're not going to do well for yourself, for your family, for your community, and that's something that I'm passionate about.
I love it. So clearly tech is, big, heavy on your heart. I don't think we brought this out yet. You are the dean of the Bowler
College of
Business.
John Carroll.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yes, sir. So I wanted to get that out on the table. Local university, held in very high regard. I'm sure most of you have heard of John Carroll University. So can you talk about how you've been able to implement, this passion for tech into the curriculum at John Carroll?
So I'm just finishing up my first year there. I've been a dean for a long time in other institutions, but it's my first year at John Carroll. I've been a Clevelander for 20 years. Love Northeast Ohio, raised my family here. I think it's a great place with great opportunity. And it's also a place with a hard work ethic and community that is close together. You wanted to reach out to me, it took one email, you found me. I want to reach out.
He's not wanted.
If I want to reach out to the mayor, literally one email, I guarantee you I'll have a conversation with Mayor Bibb, or any of us would. And the idea is we're this kind of community, right? And so there's so much strength in that. And so when I look at all these opportunities, I also look at what we need to be doing. And so I've been involved in my time in Cleveland in trying to promote our tech-centered community around the country. And so there was an effort a few years ago trying to bring blockchain technology into Cleveland. It was called Blockland, which I thought was a great effort. I was on the founding board of that effort. We tried really hard to create a center of gravity here for technology, and at the very least we created an awareness to the fact that you know what, we're not Silicon Valley, we're not New York, we're not Boston, we're not Miami. Well, we got some stuff going on here, and actually we got a hard-working ethic, we got a close-knit community, and we have significant educational institutions here. We can do a lot of things. And so I became the dean at Bowler and noticed that we're not offering tech proficiency for our grads. Now remember, I'm getting and I'm well aware of this, I'm getting the tip of the iceberg in terms of the educational attainment population here, right? I'm getting folks who went through everything, so now they are in an academic program in one of the best universities in the region. So I'm aware of that, and even then, they didn't have what employers needed, right? And so our accounting students didn't necessarily know enough or anything about blockchain. Our finance students have no idea about fintech, certainly not how to develop it. Our marketing students don't know enough or anything about ad tech. And so how can we have that? Business is technology. And so we're developing now what we call a tech core. So a lot of students that get higher education, especially if they go to private institutions, especially if they go to liberal arts institutions, have to take what's known as a liberal arts core. And that there's a lot of sense behind that. It creates a foundation for a young person going into their career. It allows for people like you and me to, when we're meeting at an event like Futureland, to have a conversation based on the fact that you know about the liberal arts core, I know about the liberal arts core, you're able to mention your favorite authors, artists, whatever it is, and we can have a conversation because we have a foundation. And that's important. What's missing in that is what I call a tech core, right? And if you don't know enough about tech, you got a problem. So we're developing a tech core in the College of Business at Bowler. You won't be able to get your business degree without going through that core. Just like you're not able to get it without going through, English, history, religion, which are incredibly important. But without technology, they're deficient. They used to be good for, 2,000 years. It's not enough anymore. You have to know technology. And so we're implementing a tech core, which is really, we're one of the first universities, certainly business schools in the country, that actually mandates technological training for the undergraduate students pursuing a business degree.
Wow, that's impressive. And it sounds like that's in motion now.
It's happening.
It's happening now. Obviously, you're the dean, so there's a lot of people up under you. Can you speak to your faculty and some of the professors and their buy-in to this kind of new system?
Yeah, I'm smiling because you said people under me, which obviously means that you're blissfully ignorant of how higher ed works, okay? No one's under anyone. There's no boss structure. Most people have their tenure. And so my background isn't in higher ed. My background is my first 6 years of my adult life. When I was 18, I served in the military, and then my parents are Israeli. I served in the Israeli Special Forces. I was there for 6 years. And I was an officer. And so I was an officer in a military organization, and when I told people to do something, they did it because I was their commanding officer. Done. Then I went into corporate, and I was senior executive in a variety of multinational corporations, and I would tell people to do something and they would do it because I'm the boss. Done. All of a sudden I'm in higher ed. Everybody's tenured for life. No one really is anyone's boss, and so my leadership has evolved over time, where I'm working now with folks who are not under me. They are colleagues. The interesting part is, and I say that semi tongue-in-cheek, is when it comes to responsibility, then I'm at the top. When it comes to decision making, it's flat. It's just how it is. And so, having said that, you need to get even more buy-in than you would normally need in an organization that's hierarchical. And so I shared my vision. I was like, okay, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's where we need to be. One of the reasons that we should be doing that, if you read the papers, or if you listen to podcasts, or if you see what's going on in the media, you'll see folks like Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk or others who are billionaires, very successful people, saying forget college, you don't need an education, you can do this. And I always look at them and I go, no. You don't need it, because you're the one who actually was able to become a billionaire without going to school. Most of us absolutely need it, and so we have to have an education, because, as you know, if you get your undergraduate degree, you're increasing your average lifetime earnings by $1 million. That is a significant number for anyone pursuing a higher education degree. It makes a lot of sense. I'm not saying you don't make it through life if you don't have a higher education degree, but I'm saying you will be making more money over your life if you do. On average, it's just tested. Now, really depends what you study. We can talk about that later. But the idea is, I cannot have these folks walking around in the media and saying, you don't need a higher education. We'll teach you how to do it. So for instance, Google says, skip a degree, come to Google, we'll teach you how to be a Googler. That's great, I'm all for it. The reason they're doing that is, I'm not doing my job. If I were doing my job, if they got people from higher education that were just like they wanted, they wouldn't say that. Google doesn't want to be a university.
They're not getting what they...
No, they're not getting it. And so what is that supposed to mean to me? I better fix it, or I'm going to go out of business. I'm a business guy who happens to be in higher education. We do have a divine mission in higher education, and that is educate and produce talent into the ecosystem by improving our ecosystem. And so that's different between us and Google. Google doesn't care about Cleveland. Google will take a Cleveland kid and take him to Silicon Valley and train them how to be a Googler. But how does that affect us here? Right? And so we are looking at improving who we are through what we do, and that's why we're trying to gap this technological chasm between what we have and what we should have.
Perfect, I love it. So how have you been able to kind of innovatively incorporate this real world experience into the curriculum? So we talked about the tech. Now, I know you put an emphasis on that real world experience. I also remember Futureland. You had, I don't know if you set it up, but there were John Carroll students there.
I didn't set it up. We're well ingrained into the community.
It
was nice to see them there.
Definitely. So could you speak to, some of those experiences and the impact that you think it has?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I always find it weird when I get asked something like that, and I'll tell you, not a criticism, I'll tell you why. First of all, we earned it. We earned it in the sense that, in a negative sense, we, higher education, earned someone like you, a young professional, asking a business dean, well, how are you doing things to learn by doing, right? It should not be a question. It should be obvious that that's what we're doing. And I always equate what we do in business schools to medical schools, right? If I were a medical school dean, he would never ask me that. It's like, of course I'm teaching how to do surgery the most advanced way. Of course I'm pushing, and that's how a business school needs to be. I'm running a school that produces talent that will be physicians for businesses, right? So the difference between me and a med school dean is med school dean, she would be in charge of a system that produces physicians into the healthcare systems. I'm in charge of producing professionals into the business ecosystem. There's no difference in the concept. And so just like a business school, just like a med school dean would teach students how to do things learn by doing, I have to be doing the same thing. So I always find it weird when I get asked, especially sometimes I get asked, well, how can you be a venture fund managing member and also a business school dean? And I always say, well, would you ask a med school dean who's a surgeon, how can you be a surgeon in a med school? No, of course not. You expect them to be a surgeon. And so I'm a business guy who happens to be running a business school. I run it like a business, and I know it's always surprising to folks, but that's how it should be. And so at least that's the way I see it. When I was in business before I got into higher education, that was always my criticism of higher education. Like, what are you guys teaching them? And then it's like you're learning about a case study from 1983. Great. Has nothing to do with what we're doing now, especially as we're moving into the future. I'll give you an example. I insist on teaching an MBA class. I'm not supposed to as a dean, but again, of course I'm supposed to. I'm the dean. And so I insist on, I love interacting with students. And so this last fall semester, I was teaching the marketing management MBA course. And I assigned 2 books ahead of time when I was writing the syllabus. One was a Phil Kotler book. Anyone who knows anything about marketing should, if they haven't already, read at least one thing by Phil Kotler. Great, no problem. The other was an integrated marketing communication book, an IMC book. The night before our first class, ChatGPT was announced publicly. Now, those of us who are into AI knew about that coming and all that stuff. But all of a sudden, it blew up, right? So it blows up, everybody's talking about it, and then it's the first night of class, and I'm looking at the MBA students and say, hey, you guys know the IMC book I told you to buy? Send it back to Amazon. Forget it. ChatGPT knows how to do it. There's no point in teaching you how to do it. It can do it better than you. Learn how to use it.
Right.
And so the whole course became how do we apply AI into everything we're doing, which is, by the way, interesting because I see a lot of initial responses by educators is to try and stop ChatGPT,
block it,
which is insane to me. First of all, it's going to fail.
Right.
You know it's going to fail, so why even trying?
Right.
And second, instead of embracing technology, education is afraid of it. And so I'm saying if a student is cheating using ChatGPT, then I'm not teaching it right. They should, first of all, they should be happy to tell me that they're using it. Absolutely. Right. And so we got a long way to go in higher education. In education in general, all I can tell you is that back in the 60s, there was a move to use calculators in math classes, and teachers opposed it.
Wow.
And look how that turned out. Yeah. Opposing technology is silly.
Can't go against technology.
No.
You kind of touched on it briefly, but as an experienced marketer, strategist, how are you able to articulate to various stakeholders in the university? So students, alum, different people who support programs. How can you, there's different ways, I would assume you have to speak to those different groups.
Sure, and so strategy and marketing are the intersection of what I try to be doing for my entire career. And strategy is the overarching drive. Marketing is the application of strategy, and you can have, you can have financial strategy, HR strategy, and I'm talking about marketing strategy, but it's all strategic. And I've been lucky enough to, decades ago, become familiar with a method of planning and executing strategy. And it's called OKR, and I'm recommending it to all our listeners. It's objectives and known results. There's a book about that, and here's the concept. It was invented by Andy Grove, who was one of the first leaders of Intel. And the concept is this: you and I, and most of our listeners, if we needed to, we probably couldn't remember more than 3 to 5 priorities of the organization. If the organization had 12 priorities, there's no way any of us would remember that. And if we don't remember what we're supposed to be doing, we're definitely not going to be doing it.
Right.
And so the idea is, okay, we got to have no more than 5, between 3 and 5 objectives. Again, reminding you, objectives and known results. And the objectives are, what are we trying to achieve? Okay, what is the set of goals that we're trying to achieve? The KR stands for known results, and known results is how are we going to measure that?
Right.
I'll just give a quick tip. If we don't know how we're going to measure it, we shouldn't be doing it. Okay, well, don't do something you cannot measure. If there's one thing that drives me insane, it's marketers, but not just marketers, who say fluffy things that no one can measure. What are we doing? Why are we even, measure. And so objectives and known results, and I set 5 objectives for the college that are easy to remember because they're only 5, and then they're easily measurable. Here's what we decided we're going to be focusing on. First and foremost is ecosystem impact. That's where you and I met, right? I'm in the ecosystem. The college is in the ecosystem. We're involved with young professional organizations, with professional organizations, not necessarily young, with civic organizations, with philanthropy. We are a citizen of our ecosystem. So that's number 1, ecosystem impact. The second thing that we focused on, is not going to surprise you, is technological proficiency. And so we're going to emphasize technological proficiency in our curriculum. The third thing, we talked about this before you started taping, I'm dating myself, is we internationalize the curriculum. And so we put in international content into what we teach. we bring in international students, international faculty to teach, to collaborate with our students, and we take our students abroad. I told you I just came back from an MBA study tour, and so internationalizing the curriculum is incredibly important as part of what we're doing. The fourth thing is learning by doing. And we talked about that. You cannot study business and not learn by doing. So our accounting students just finished the season. They participate in the VITA program, which is they perform taxes for families of low means in our neighborhoods and in the city.
It has some similar at Lake Erie College.
Yeah, it's an IRS program. It's called a VITA program, and it's a wonderful way for accounting students to learn by doing, but also to serve the ecosystem. Yeah. Our finance students have we just launched a venture capital fund. So our finance students are managing a venture capital fund that invests in entrepreneurship students who are all learning by doing as they are in business school. And so learning by doing is critical. And of course, the most important thing within that is we implemented 100% requirement for internships. Internships are incredibly critical for students to learn what they might want to do, to maybe learn what they never want to do again, but also to have connections to employers, to have a resume builder. And so one of the first things I did was implement a 100% requirement for at least one internship, otherwise you can't graduate. What's cool about it is most students, once they do one, they usually do another one at least. And so again, they're upping their chances. So that's the fourth thing. And the last thing is we're putting an emphasis on our MBA program. The MBA is critically important for any business school. It's critically important for any professional, young or less young, as they progress through their careers, whether they're in corporate or working for themselves or working with nonprofits. An MBA gives you a skill set that is an advanced skill set as you proceed into your career. Those are the 5 things we're focusing on. They're easy to measure. Everybody can remember them, and everyone can say, okay, here's how I fit into those 5 things. Strategy.
Okay, so you got a system for relaying that info. I love it. I
OKR.
love systems.
Look it up.
OKR, got it. So closing out, definitely appreciate your time. As an accomplished speaker, noted scholar, people I'm sure are always hitting you up, for different engagements. What is the key message that you would like to convey? Maybe it's just for this audience of entrepreneurs, small business owners, or just in general, if you have a key message that you'd like to convey.
It keeps changing, and I get inspired by people I interact with, events that I'm in, and so I'll give you a key message that's not mine, but it really inspired me. The last weekend was commencement weekend, so we had the best day of every academic year, a lot of excitement, and so we have commencement speakers come in, and sometimes they give good speeches, sometimes not amazing, and so I was thinking about and actually asked ChatGPT to tell me about the best commencement speakers and speeches out there, but also I asked what was the longest one and what was the shortest one. I'll spare you the longest one because it was 6 hours.
Oh wow!
I don't who does that to people before lunch? Are you kidding?
I don't think anyone was happy.
Forget it. I was like 6 hours. Anyway, the shortest was Winston Churchill, and Winston Churchill got up on stage and said 3 words, and that's going to be my message for today. For entrepreneurs, but for all of us, never give up.
I love it. Where can the people find you?
I'm on LinkedIn, Higher Ed OKR. Those that actually listen to it now understand what that is. But my first name and last name, Elad Granot. Hit me up on LinkedIn. You'll see that I'm incredibly responsive. I'm really interested in being ingrained into our ecosystem, welcoming people into the campus, into the business school. I told you before, I'm passionate about access. I'm an advocate for access, and so I don't want there to be a feeling that there's some sort of gap between the city, the community, and who we are as an institution. That's why you see me everywhere. That's why I'm here. I want people to feel free to reach out to me if they want to come visit the school, if they want to hold an event at the school. Reach out to me. We are members of this Cleveland and greater Cleveland community, and we want to make sure that we fulfill our responsibility.
Definitely stay tuned. The incubator will be reaching out for an event on campus.
Yeah, wait to host.
Stay tuned. Definitely appreciate the time.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Again, Naw Talk Yo Sh, episode 9.